Welcome to Flutter Redux. It's a set of utilities that allow you to easily consume a Redux Store to build Flutter widgets. You can make use of the provider, builder, connector, and other stuff like the middleware to achieve a managed state amongst different widgets. Let's convert the counter app to use Flutter Redux. To do so, first I'll go to my pubs back to YAML file and add Flutter Redux dependency version 0.5.0 and run the command flutter packages get. Okay, now let's run the app. While it's been run, let's add two imports, one for Redux and one for Flutter Redux. I'll create three Dart files. One will be called reducers, one will be called actions, and one can be called states. Alright, now I can convert this to block body and I can initialize a variable of store. I can call it store and initialize with a counter reducer and an initial state of 0. Now the store is something that holds the app state tree. Okay, now I can pass in the store inside my app stateless widget. I can create a store variable of type int and a constructor which takes in the store and pass it in here. As my tests are breaking here, I can pass null here for now. And what's the count reducer? I'll create inside my reducers.dart, I'll create a counter reducer which takes in a previous state and a dynamic action, and it will return a new state. Let's return the previous state for now. Now that we have a counter reducer in place, I can pass the store inside something called a store provider. A store provider is nothing but an inherited widget which is of type int state and takes in the store. Alright, now in my home page I can remove the counter variable because it will be managed. The text I can cut, and here the text is where I'm showing the counter variable. I can cut this and add a store connector. A store connector is something which listens to the store changes. So it takes in a converter which converts the store to some kind of view model. So in this case it will be the state is the int and it will convert it to string. So I can also write it takes in a state which is int and converts it to string. Now when the store state is converted, it can be shown inside a builder, and I can return here my text. Now this view model is nothing but the string that I had passed. Alright, now that we have the text in place, we can change the floating action button. I'll cut this and I'll again add a store connector which takes in, this time the state is int but the view model is void callback, which can be thought of as this from Kotlin. And here I'll convert the store to dispatch some kind of action. So I'll return a closure of store.dispatch some kind of action. Now this action I can write inside my actions class, and I can create an enum of action increment or decrement, and I can import actions, and I can do action dot increment. Alright, inside my builder function I can take in the context and the view model. This time the view model will be the callback, so I can return the floating action button, and in my on pressed I can invoke the callback. So this will invoke this function and it will dispatch an action increment. Let's run this and check if this works. We started app in 5.8 milliseconds. 5.8 seconds. Okay, it's not working. Why? Because we haven't added any logic. So let's do if action is, let me import actions. If the action is action increment, I'll just increment the previous state by 1. Else if action is decrement, I'll just return the previous state -1. Else I'll just return the previous state. Now let's run this again. Okay, now this works. In the next step, what we can do is we can change this int to become a state. So I can create a CounterState class which has a variable of count and also a constructor. This could be immutable, so I can import the meta and make this immutable. And this can also have a static variable of empty, which could be initialized. I mean, this is the default state. So wherever there's an int, I can just import the state, and here I can write CounterState, the CounterState, and here also CounterState. Then this is also CounterState. Okay, this is also CounterState, and this is also CounterState. Okay, when I initialize this could be CounterState.empty, and the user will take in the CounterState. It has to import states, so it will take in the CounterState and return a CounterState. And now, because this is immutable, you can see what I'm doing is I'm creating a new state. Okay, I think this is good, and I'll run this again. Instance of CounterState. So I also have to change this to state.count and run this again. Okay, this is working. In the next step, what we can do is we can pass something in the action. So I can create an increment action which takes in the count, and I can also create a decrement action which also takes in the count. Now this can be interpreted as the sealed classes from Kotlin, in which we can pass data inside whatever we want. So where I'm dispatching the action, I can dispatch an increment action with some kind of state, but with some kind of count. But where does this count come from? To pass in the callback, void callback doesn't take anything, no arguments. So I can create my own callback. I can create a type def of on counter changed, which is nothing but a function which takes in an integer of count. All right, let's change this to count on count changed. Let's just copy this. All right, when I want to dispatch this, now I have the count variable and I can do an increment action with the count, and instead of looking like this, I can do the callback with the count. Let's increment it by 1 this time, and that is it. Let's run this. I think it won't work because we haven't changed this. So because now the actions are different, I can do if the action is increment action, it will typecast it automatically and you can get the count from the action. If the action is decrement action, you can do action previous state.count minus action.count, and let's run this again. Okay, it has restarted and it still works. Now what if we wanted to increase the count by 2? It still works. So this is how you can use Flutter Redux to create more stateful apps with separation of concerns. Thanks for watching.